Alright, today I'm going to give you an inside look at how hiring managers review resumes. And I'm going to give you 5 critical tips that if you adhere to will give you a huge advantage over other candidates. If you're new here, I was a managing director at a prestigious Wall Street bank and quit to start this YouTube channel with the aim of helping you become even more successful than I was. Over the course of my 20-year career that spans several companies, I was responsible for reviewing hundreds of resumes and overseeing the hiring of many staff. Now, to make this video real, we'll be using examples of real resumes that you, my viewers, sent in for review. All confidential, and identifying information has been hidden for their protection. As this is a brand new channel, please show your support by sharing this video on LinkedIn. The more this channel will succeed, the more content I'll be able to create for you. Tip number 1, understand your audience. I want you to imagine you are a hiring manager for a second. It's a super busy day and you've finally found 15 minutes to review the 8+ resumes that have been piling up in your queue. That means you've got less than 2 minutes to review each one. You want to know straight away, does this person have the skills to perform the job you're hiring for? Do they have the right experience for the level of the role? And are there any red flags that you should be aware of? Opening the first resume, you are immediately overwhelmed with 3 pages of densely packed text. Just adding up her year's experience is a challenge. Same with trying to decipher which of her past jobs are relevant to this one. Even at the top of her resume, her description of what she does is unclear, and at odds with what she has written directly under it. She states technology risk management, but then the paragraph underneath describes a set of skills that seems to align to a different role as a business analyst. Rule number 1 of effective written communication. The more text you write, the less people read and absorb. A resume like this one that is just too long and wordy shows the hiring manager one thing, that you are unable to communicate concisely and effectively. And that is often a key skill required in most roles. This resume is rejected and the hiring manager moves on. Here is another example. At the top of his resume, he states strategic business development risk assessment for power utilities in Africa. This is an example of work that this candidate has done at a specific job and should be mentioned in that section. Also, why are we stating hashtags prominently on this resume for things that are just unlikely to be hashtags? This just takes up room and again distracts from the real information you want the hiring manager to focus on. Your resume is like an elevator pitch to a venture capitalist. If you're stuck in an elevator for 2 minutes with a hiring manager, what would you tell them about yourself? You'd summarize your most significant achievements and tell them why you'd be ideal for the role. You would not waste time by telling them your hashtags or describing work you did at a job 10 years ago. So why would you distract them with that on your resume? Tip number 2, your resume must match the job description. Contrary to popular opinion, applying for jobs is not a numbers game. It's better to have one resume that tightly matches the job you're applying for than to send off 1,000 generic ones. If the role says that they are looking for a product manager, don't submit a resume that shows that you are in the legal department. It will be rejected before it even gets into the hands of the hiring manager. Resumes often need to pass through filters and can be reviewed by HR recruiting teams first. This is to ensure that hiring managers don't waste time on candidates who are clearly ineligible or don't match the role's job description. Like the example I just gave, if you are trying to career switch, get ahead of this by stating at the top you had a career in, say, legal and are now switching into product management. State why. You were supporting the product management team for many years and have been exposed to their work. You feel it better suits your core skill set. And you will want the skills you mentioned to tightly match the job description. For example, if the job says looking for a Java software developer and you have also worked on .NET, a different developer platform, you better put Java first in your list of skills and put .NET down the end or not at all. Again, do not distract the hiring manager from the skills that they are actually looking for by mentioning a whole bunch of unrelated ones. If you do want to get recognition for having an extensive list of skills and experience, tell them to your mother, but don't put them on your resume. And lastly, you want to make it easy for the hiring manager to see that you match the minimum years of experience. Don't make them have to work to find that information. Tip number 3, your resume must be specific to you. You need to convey to the hiring manager what you specifically did. Avoid using vague language like this resume does. Leader and highly instrumental in a number of functions. What did you do? What made you highly instrumental? This leads me to my second rule of communication. Show, don't tell. Anyone can describe themselves as a leader and highly accomplished, but few can actually demonstrate it. Here is an example of what this opening statement probably should say. After working internally to streamline communications, turnaround times for client requests were reduced by a factor of 2, and the client increased their purchasing by over 40% annually. You can see that by stating what you specifically did and the results you were responsible for, it makes it believable and allows the reader to form their own opinion that you are highly accomplished. Plus, describing yourself with language like I'm a leader, highly accomplished, or visionary, it just sounds self-righteous, arrogant, and delusional. It's not going to result in the reader thinking positive things of you. Tip number 4, your resume must stand out. As I mentioned, a hiring manager could be reading 8 to 20 resumes at a time. You want yours to stand out. Look at this one. Although it isn't perfect, the use of color and icons makes this resume a must-read. And this person has listed his portfolio of work with a clickable link, which also makes the resume stand out that he is confident in his prior work to show it to you. When you look at long-winded, text-heavy resumes like the ones I showed earlier, you can see how much a clearly laid out, easy-to-read resume stands out. When the hiring manager picks up one of these, there is almost this sense of relief before you start reading it. And you want the hiring manager to start reading your resume on a positive note. To slim down excessive text, avoid being repetitive. For example, don't put skills in your job description when you have a skills section. The only time repetition is acceptable is when you are highlighting your top 2 to 3 career achievements in your executive summary. That's if you have one. Also, don't include massive job descriptions of jobs that you did very early on in your career or that are just unrelated to the role you are applying for. For example, even on that good-looking resume I showed earlier, being an attendee at an event is not noteworthy and distracts people from reading more valuable parts of your resume. Remove it. Tip number 5, your resume should not have red flags. Nothing gets resumes discarded faster than having red flags. Avoid changing jobs too frequently. It takes companies 6 months to train a new staff member and around 3 months to hire one. No one wants to invest that kind of time in someone who will leave after 18 months or less. If there are gaps in your resume for reasonable reasons, just explain them in the executive summary. For example, returning to work after taking 10 years off to bring up my children. An explanation like this one is 100% fine, and on a personal level, it's inspiring. Watch out for spelling or grammatical errors too. They will demonstrate a lack of attention to detail. And if you're a foreign speaker, make sure to have a native speaker read it over to ensure your translation and phrasing reads naturally and is correct. Also, be careful using color or alternate layouts. Many hiring managers still print resumes in black and white. You want to make sure yours prints as intended. This one for an example. It's got a black background. It will be a pain to print. And this one uses a 3-column layout, which means text is wrapping. This is much harder to read. Stick to a layout that goes across the page. Also, be careful of what you draw attention to. For example, this one mentions owning a vehicle and having a driver's license. This is just something that is a non-issue for most successful people. And I'd only expect to see this on a resume for an Uber driver or a food delivery one. This may signal to a large company that you are just not suitable. And lastly, we've talked about resumes that are too wordy and don't adhere to a structure. As I said, this raises a red flag that you just aren't a good communicator. Let's conclude with me putting my money where my mouth is and demonstrating what I just talked about with my own resume. You can see that through the use of clear sections with lots of white space, it is very easy to find the information a hiring manager is looking for. My speciality, years of experience, academic qualifications, and my most impressive career achievements. I've also used very light colors to stand out, yet still print well in black and white. As you scroll through, you'll see that I mention specific examples of what I did in each role and quantify them. There is no vague language used. Also, you'll notice a decent amount of information for the first job, but then as the jobs become older and less relevant, less. You'll notice that I've broken up my experience into 3 groupings. This is an example of how to show experience if you've switched careers. You'll also notice that there is no skills section. By being specific in describing what I did in each role, there is no need for me to put one in. For those in deep technical fields though, such as data science or programming, I would recommend that you include one. Finally, I put some interests at the end. If the hiring manager is also interested in one or more of these, the hiring manager will straight away be more invested in my application. If they don't share my interest though, at least I sound unique and no harm has been done. Look, I have over 20 years experience, yet was able to summarize that into just 2 easy to read pages. You can do this too. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope you found this video informative and insightful. If you did, help raise awareness of this channel by posting the video on your LinkedIn profile, Twitter, and other social media. And don't forget to smash the like button and get subscribed. Not only does it show your appreciation for the insane amount of work spent making these videos, but as I always say, it makes my mother very proud. Till next time, go do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.